video, I'm going to take you through step by step everything that I did to turn this Volkswagen Caddy Maxi van into a micro camper. Now, before I got started, the only things that I wanted to do to the outside was to change the bumper so that it's color coded and to put some wheel caps on just to neaten it up a little bit. And from there, I took the bulkhead out, stripped everything out the back, and then made a blank canvas so I was ready to get going. Now I've got pretty much everything I need in here. There's a fan on the roof at the back. This is a double bed, which most people can only usually manage to fit a single in these micro campers. I've got plenty of storage all around the place. There's a heater on the wall. I've got a full electric system with a 240 volt socket. I've got a cooker, a sink and a fridge, and of course an all important cinema screen with a projector, and everything is run by a leisure battery, which is topped up by the large solar panel that I've got on the roof. Now I'm going to be going on some little adventures in this van. Depending on when you're watching this video, I might have already done so make sure you go and check out the channel and hit subscribe so you don't miss that. And without further ado, I don't even know what that means, but let's get on with the build. So the first job is to put some of this sound deadening on the panels. You don't need a lot of it, just about 50% coverage, but you can see the difference it makes from when it's on to when it's not on. So when you're driving down the road, it doesn't sound so much like a van. So when you take the bulkhead out, it leaves this gap along the edge here, and you can pay about 400 or 500 quid to get some parts, like some plastic bits from Volkswagen. Or what I did was I cut the edges of the bulkhead off with a multi-tool, sanded them down a bit. I'm going to cover them in carpet, and then they should fit back in nicely. Right, so next up was this thermal insulation, and I've just basically put it on every surface that's like an outer layer of the van, because that's what's going to get the most cold. And it is going to go on the ceiling as well and the floor, but that's coming later on in the build. So I'm just going to temporarily fit these ply panels in for now, and that's just so that when I measure up for the furniture, I know exactly where everything's going to be. So the walls are now up, and if there's any advice I could give, is that is definitely a two-man job. I had my mate to help me because you have to put a lot of pressure on it as you're screwing these things in. But also the reason I wanted to put it up temporarily is because these kits aren't always perfect, and you can see down there's a line which I'm going to have to cut off with a jigsaw before I carpet it. Right, so the ply kits for these caddies never seem to come with the roof liner, so I've got some plywood. I've just bought a jigsaw. I've never used one of these in my life, but I've marked up some wood. Let's give it a go. So I'm just in the process of sticking all these little bits of wood down to the metal floor, and then I'm going to mark on the walls whereabouts they are, and then later on when I come to put the plywood floor down, I have something to drill into other than the floor itself. I've also just made some little wooden battens for the rear window frames, and this is so that I've got something to screw into here when I fit the plywood panels. The floor has now been insulated as well, and I've just taken down the ply walls so that I can make a start with the carpeting. I've just carpeted the wheel arches and just this little strip along the back here, just so that when the wooden floor's down, you won't be able to see any of that silver insulation around the edges. The plywood is now down, and I've just transferred some markings onto it from where those little wooden battens were glued down to the floor, and I screwed it all in place, and it looks all good apart from these little gaps at the edge here, and that's where the cup holders used to be. So what I've done, I've actually already prepared for this. There's some battens underneath there as well, so I just got to make some cardboard templates, transfer that onto some plywood, and then cut some sections out to fill those gaps. They're both now in and fitting nicely, so that's the whole floor covered, ready for the wood effect vinyl to go down. So I've got this hole saw. It's quite big, and it's for the solar fan which I've got going in the roof. I'm just going to put it up there and give it a go. So the solar vent is on, nice and firm, job done. Right, so just one more hole's got to go in the roof. It's a smaller hole, and this is for the cables for the solar panel. So now the last bit of thermal insulation is done. That's the whole ceiling done, and we're about to put the solar panel up on the roof. Little B come to check on the work. How you doing, mate? The panel has been secured nice and safe with a couple of tubes of Sikaflex, and that is the wiring done, so that comes nicely through the roof into the inside. I've added some thicker insulation into some of the gaps on the walls and the side doors. I've left this side panel over here for now because it's got to get some wiring done. But I've also added some extra bits of carpet around the edges. So now when I put the panels in, you won't be able to see any little gaps, and the panels have all been carpeted as well and they're ready to go. I don't really know what I'm doing when it comes to electrics, so I should really have paid someone to do this for me. But I thought, what's the fun in that? So I've watched a YouTube video. I'm splicing some wires together. What's the worst that could happen? The wires from the lights have all been run across the ceiling and put roughly into the right places. And I've also extended that solar panel cable, so that's out of the way. Now, I'm not going to know if any of this is working properly until I put the battery in, but I'll deal with that when I get to it. So for now, it's just time to put the panels up and see how she's looking. It's starting to come together. It's looking good. That's like, for example, why I was putting the bits behind there, so that you can't see the gaps, and there's a bit in here as well down the side there. I've just popped the lights in place and it's finally starting to look more like a camper van and less like a building site in here. I've just glued some carpet around the edges of the back doors, so now I can fit some of that thicker insulation into the gaps, and then I can screw the panels in place. So the top two panels on the rear door I've had to cut out of plywood, and the bottom two did come with the ply kit, but I've had to cut a little notch in one of them and attach that shoelace which goes down inside, and that then attaches to the locking mechanism, because as standard you can't get out of these vans from the inside. So now when you pull that, it will undo the lock and you can get out safely. Starting to get stuck right in with all the electrics, or starting to get confused more like. There's a lot of it going on, and I'm just reading through some manuals and trying to figure it all out. Everything is now in place, and there's some wires which come underneath there up into this part where the plastic trim is. That's going to then go through that hole there and up onto the side wall where I'm going to have the dimmer switches and the sockets. That is the last panel finally in place. The wires are just poking through there for now, ready to be attached to the sockets. And I've just neatened up the wires that run through the bottom there as well, although that is going to be covered up with a little unit. And that is the sockets in place. So I've got a 3-pin normal plug, I've got a 12-volt plug socket there and a twin USB. And then up here I've got my battery monitor, and to the right of that we've got 2 dimmer switches to control the LED lights that are on the ceiling. Okay, so just a brief explanation, because if I went into details this could be a whole video in itself. But underneath here we have the leisure battery, and this is what powers everything that's in the back. Over here we have the charger, and this is connected to the solar panel on the roof and the main battery that's under the bonnet of the van. So when I'm driving it will charge the leisure battery, and when I'm not driving the solar panel will charge it. And then the leisure battery is connected to this inverter, which ups the voltage to 240 volts, so we can then run household appliances in the normal 3-pin socket in the back. And everything else, like the lights, the twin USB socket, the 12-volt socket, the fridge and the diesel heater, runs through this fuse box here. And then all the negatives from every appliance comes back to this common earth block here, which then goes into this thing which is called a shunt, and that measures the battery intake and outtake, which goes off to the battery monitor in the back, and then that is connected back to the battery and to this earth point in the van here. The vinyl flooring has just gone down and it's starting to look pretty nice in here. I've had this custom steel frame made for the sofa bed, and the reason why I've had it custom made is because I wanted it to fit the dimensions perfectly. So as you can see, it fits just on top of that wheel arch, which gives me maximum headroom. And also I wanted it a bit wider than usual, because the ones that you normally see in these vans aren't as wide as this. And I've secured it to the floor with these brackets down here, and also it is secured to the side of the van. These bits of plywood I've just cut out with the jigsaw, and I've screwed them down to the frame. And that back section there, I've just curved it around those back doors and around that pillar, so that I can make maximum use of the length of the van. And this is what it looks like when it's up in a sofa position. As you can see, it still gives you plenty of room up the front. And another reason why I had it custom made is because I wanted this extra little bench section on the back, so that you can open up the back doors, sit there and check out the views. I've cut out the 4 sections of foam for the sofa bed, and they're all nicely cut around the back corners. And what I've done is I've gone for 4 inches of standard foam, and then 1 inch on top of memory foam for extra comfort. I got these cushion covers on eBay for £25 and they're elasticated, so it's one size fits all. But the custom ones that I was gonna get, I was quoted £750. And these were supposed to be temporary, but for that price, I'm thinking of keeping these because they're actually quite nice. Okay, so I've now fitted a curtain rail to separate the cab from the back. It's nice and simple, they just pull shut. And then there's some poppers, so you can stick them together in the middle. I've just installed this projector screen and it's actually a tabletop one, so I've had to figure out how to mount it to the ceiling. So what I've done is I've used these metal banding strips here and I've just used some screws to secure it in place. Now when the bed is fully extended, it comes out to about there. I need to leave a space in this corner here so that I can stand there to put the bed back into a sofa. And when the screen comes down, it comes along to about here. So basically I've got this tiny section here in order to somehow fit a kitchen unit. I have drawn an extremely detailed and professional plan, as you can see. So then I've cut out all the bits of wood to the right size, just using a tenon saw and that square thing, which I don't know what it's called, just to try and get it as accurate as I can. Okay, so there's going to be a solid panel across the front, and then on either side there's going to be a door. But before I fit those, I thought I'd just show you what I've done. So on the left, obviously we've got a sink. Now there will be a tap on there as well, and that's going to be plumbed into these two canisters that are underneath. One is for fresh water and one is for grey water, in other words, the wastewater. Those are properly fitted in there and they're not going to be moving around at all. There's no room for them to go anywhere. And then over this side, we've got the double burner hob, and underneath that, I've actually converted it so that it can run off of these disposable gas cans rather than having to have a gas locker and a massive can of gas in the van. Then I've just got one piece of wood there just to protect the underside of that cooker. And then underneath that, I've got a little shelf, which is big enough just to fit some pots and pans in and things like that. And then underneath that, that's where I've got my fridge. And obviously that can slide out of that side door so I can access it. So I've also just made this side unit, so I've got a little bit of extra storage. So all I've got to do now is cover everything in this laminate plastic stuff and then get the units installed in the van. The units are now done and fitted in place. Everything's fitting nicely. On this side, we can access the fridge. This side, we've got our water supply in there and a working sink. And this side unit is a perfect fit as well. You can just lift that up and then you've got a little bit of storage space along there. And then this bit, which I've actually got some pots and pans, but that goes all the way to the bottom. So there's plenty of room in there as well. The finishing touches have just gone in. So up here, I've got a heater. Next to that is a wall clock and a thermometer. Next to that, I've got a carbon monoxide detector. And of course, up on the wall, I've got a fire extinguisher. And last but not least, I've bought a suitcase which fits nicely under the bed there for storage. This is just a simple camping toilet and you just line that with a bag and then afterwards it folds flat so you can tuck that out of sight. And up on the wall there, I've got a portable projector so that I can watch Netflix or YouTube or whatever I want wherever I am. So there you have it. That is step by step everything that I did to turn this VW Caddy Maxi into a micro camper. Now, if you do want to watch the little adventures that I'm going to be having in this van, make sure you check out the channel and hit subscribe. I hope this has helped you in some way. If it has, give it a thumbs up and thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.